Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is TB Skyn, and Riot has just announced their League Animation Workshop, which is a small collection of animatics and storyboards and small animations that they've made, apparently, that don't tend to get released with Champions proper or don't tend to develop into larger projects. They just sit around collected from around workstations around Riot that just kind of sit there and haven't really been used for anything, and now they've decided to finish them up-ish and release them. And the first one of those was just released featuring Miss Fortune, and I wanted to do a little video commenting on this stuff because this is exactly the kind of thing that I have been practically begging Riot to do for now ages and ages and ages. It's exactly the kind of thing that I was hoping that they would do, would take some of, because I know for a fact with all the stuff they put out, all the content that they produce, there will be a mountain of unreleased other stuff just sitting around the workstation, half-finished projects, things that never really turned into something, that never really got perfect enough for the general Riot standard of quality thing that they are so obsessed with delivering finished, complete, whole things that I suspect that they have a massive backlog, a huge archive of stuff that just doesn't come out. And this seems to be an effort to release some more of that to the public. And that's the kind of thing I've wanted Riot to do for years, because this kind of stuff is part of what I've been discussing in a lot of these other videos, the living lore, like having a constant, steady trickle of content featuring the characters, exploring them, showing them in action, showing what they do on a daily basis, showing how they treat other characters. And this is very much like that. Now, they're teasing that they're going to be releasing more of these in the future. For now, there is only one, Miss Fortune Surrender. As the description goes, her back's to the wall, bad luck for them. There's only one way out alive, and they aren't taking it. So the animatic itself, if you haven't watched it yet, we're going to watch it through. It's basically a fight scene with Miss Fortune juxtaposed against I suspect, the aftermath of the fight. And it does do a pretty damn good job of exploring her character, but I'm going to get into that more after. I'm just going to play it through because it's only 2 minutes and the music is freaking awesome. And once it's done, I'm going to come back and we're going to go through it a little bit more, not shot by shot necessarily, but in more detail. And I'm going to comment on some of the things I thought they did very right and that's very cool about this little project. Okay, so that was, first of all, freaking rad. it's just a very short fight scene juxtaposed against flashbacks. Now, as we open, first, a couple of things to comment on. There's a huge mix of media and material going on in here, actually, and I'm not sure everybody noticed that right away. The spider that's crawling towards her here is 3D animated, as far as I can tell. It certainly is once... boom. Once it's in the glass in this next shot, it is a 3D animated model. And they make great use of, because the spider is almost completely black with just a little bit of gray highlighting, you don't really notice that it is not a flat 2D thing, but rather a three-dimensional thing, which is a cool little juxtaposition of the spider against the 2D animated style. And this is the kind of thing that it's pretty characteristic of animatics like this, that you kind of mix media, you just mix stuff in, whatever fits, wherever it goes, because they are kind of rough and ready. You kind of do whatever fits, and there is a slight aesthetic disconnect between the 3D model of the spider, which does sometimes show itself to be a 3D model, and by the way, what a gross spider model they came up with, and then the extremely simplistic or completely grayscale 2D animation. But I think it really, really works. Now, the main thing that you get as contrast, part of the reason, by the way, that you would choose to 3D animate the spider is because, take a look at the movement of the spider. Even this is a fairly simple 3D animation. It's not particularly accurate to how spiders move in reality. It's at least not 100% accurate, but it's smooth. It's very smooth. It's very fluid, and you need that to get across the impression of a spider's movement. Whereas Miss Fortune herself, as you'll see, and you can see, here's a clever little trick. They slow down the frame rate to kind of indicate slow movement, and that's the kind of thing that you would do when you have a very rough animation. Instead of animating something genuinely slowly, like we just click down the frame rate, and then it looks slow enough for the outline. Now, Miss Fortune herself is more, especially in the flashback sequences, not so much animated as she's a series of drawings with a lot of motion effects going on. As you can see, they're zooming in here, then shifting a little bit with the eyes, and then I'm not sure what they did with the hair, actually, because I have this vague suspicion that it is fully hand animated. You can see I think there's a button to advance frames. I suspect some animator took the time to give special attention to Miss Fortune's hair, because it kind of plays an important role in the animation. But you can see the animation itself for Miss Fortune is very, very simple. It is really just like the hand here as it reaches for the bottle. It's not a series of images. It's not like when you do traditional animation and you draw the hand in one position and you draw the hand in the other position. You draw the hand. What they have is they drew the hand and then they used I suspect Adobe After Effects to move the hand across the screen as an object. So this is not traditional 2D animation. It's rather a series of movements. And you can see extremely limited animation and also extremely limited art style. Like Miss Fortune, as we're used to seeing her, is this glamorous, kind of arrogantly smiling, busty pirate wench with full makeup and lipstick, and looks fantastic. But in this art style, she looks tired, mostly just exhausted. You can see blood on her sleeve from where she got shot. And all of this is so very rough. But there's a bit of a point to the roughness as well, in that right now we're seeing Miss Fortune in the aftermath of the fight, right? And this is where the characterization, and this is what I really want to give props for, the characterization of Miss Fortune in this short is actually pretty brilliantly executed, because right now she's exhausted, she is desaturated, she's almost colorless, it's almost black and white except they use blue tones instead, and she's drinking, and she's just kind of fucking done with everything in the aftermath of the fight, which shows that Miss Fortune is not someone who just kind of gleefully mows down 50 people, just happily having fun, even though in game she does do kind of a lot of laughing when she does bullet time. It's this characterization of Miss Fortune shows that shit is exhausting. It's hard and it's not fun, and she doesn't particularly enjoy it. So now we get into the flashback, and you see the color scheme switches immediately. When in the present day, such as it is, we have all these blue tones and very gray, very subdued, switch into the flashback, and all of a sudden everything gets orange, reddish tinted and much more saturated. which is a nice way to show that here, she's tired, she's exhausted, it's blue, it's gray, everything's dour, it's not very alive, whereas here, well, there's literally a little blaze of HUD, haze of blood, is what I meant to say there, over the whole thing, which also adds to the dreamlike quality and helps separate the two scenes. So as an audience, we understand, okay, this is some sort of flashback or flash forward of some kind, but it's not like a direct cut from the previous scene. So that's very well done. Also, notice that the objects in the foreground here, and probably the ones in the background, these are 3D animated as well. It seems to be just very, very low polygon models made to be silhouettes, basically, and they just moved across the screen. You can see them turning very slightly as the rest of the animation goes on. And again, even though, you can see, this guy just pops into existence, right? There's barely any in-betweening, but it's accentuated with a little shake effect. Like, this is one frame. That's 2 frames. Like, his legs, his body, a bit of motion blur on top of it. Everything's very rough. You can see this is a complete sketch. There's barely anything there, but there doesn't need to be because he's on screen so briefly that all we really need is a clear idea of his outline, which is to say, first you see a long line of his legs, then he turns into this little bunch, hunched up, ready to jump again. Then he has a couple of frames of standing up, and then again, you can see his leg here is basically unfinished, but all we need to get from it is the blur of the motion of the jump. And you see a couple of other guys follow, and then into a whiteout, which again, this is helping to establish the situation that Miss Fortune is. This is not happening in real time. Miss Fortune is this is happening in Miss Fortune's head, and that's also emphasized by the fact that her head is right here in our eye line. Because if you remember, the guy jumping out of the picture, he was right about here, and then Miss Fortune is here as well. So we get this: the eye is drawn to her face, to her head, to the place of thought. And again, extremely limited animation when she pulls the cork from the bottle. 1 frame, 2 frames, 3 frames, and a lot of the work of motion here is done by her hair, first of all, which is the thing that shifts with the weight and the motion, and the stream of alcohol coming off it. You can see the hair here, because it's swung back, we get this indication that she has flung her head forward in order to spit the cork out, and that's very well executed. And again, there's a lot of, in order to give the illusion of motion, the camera is always zooming in on things, and Miss Fortune is getting closer to the camera at a different rate than the background, which again is just a few sketchy nothing lines. And all of this adds to the depth of the scene, it adds to the motion of the scene. It gives an illusion of life, even when the animation itself is so extremely limited. We get this notion that there's a lot of motion going on, there's a lot of life. It's a cheap hack, basically, in order to make very limited animation come alive more. But it really works, especially for this particular animatic. So now here we get the coin, which again, this is going to be one of the symbols that drags us, that establishes what is past and what is present. And you can see they spent a little more time animating the coin there, making sure it has, in contrast to the very limited animation of when she pulls, like it's 1 frame, 2 frame, 3 frame, 3 drawings, and then back to the rest with the 4th frame, right? Whereas the coin, take a look, 1 frame, 2 frame, 3 frame, 4 frame, 5 frame, 6 frame, 7, 8. Lots more frames on the coin because that's a slow motion, and they need to communicate the sense that she's moving the coin, she's turning it in her hand. And in order to do that, you need more frames, whereas with the bottle thing, you just need 3 frames in order to communicate that it's a rapid, sudden motion. And again, here, clever little transition trick. She goes from having her eyes closed to having them open. Boom, we flash into the flashback. Again, giving us this sense that, okay, this is a thought that's occurring in her head. And there's the coins, right? Again, the coins are also telling us, okay, so these things are connected, and we can figure that it must be a flashback because, well, she's wounded and she isn't here. And here again, lots of animation trickery. Like, this is not hand animated. No one sat there drawing each line moving across the page. What they've got is I think, the head is an object that they drew on its own. Then they have the coat, which is being manipulated on its own, and the body itself is being manipulated on its own. And it's basically like they've got, dress-up dolls, the little paper dolls where you could put different kinds of clothes on. It's kind of like that, where you have a base body where the head is a thing that's put on top of that and then is moved independently of the body to give this fantastic illusion that there's a lot of fluid animation going on, when actually it's just one drawing that's being manipulated very cleverly. Now, by all of this, I don't mean to say that, it's not real animation, they didn't really try. Now, this is very, very clever. I'm complimenting how well they're doing, like using as few resources as possible to communicate as much as possible. That's really difficult. Like that's skilled work to get across. And I can also tell that I think they are deforming and transforming and changing the shapes of things just very subtly in order to communicate the motion further. And here again, use of motion blur. Because it's a rapid action, 1 frame, 2 frame, and then motion blur in order to communicate the speed. And then they've done something with her hair. Notice how here, all of a sudden, it becomes this incredibly fluid motion thing. And notice also that here, the hair has color. It's not just, it's got color, it's got lines running through it. It's not just one shape. But here, when they need to animate it more fluidly, they just use a solid black shape. That way you don't have to worry about each strand of hair. You can just animate the hair sort of as a fluid black surface that changes shape according to your needs. And this is where they poured some of the, quite a bit of the animation budget for this thing into. You can see a whole lot of frames being used here to get this very fluid motion to communicate the impact of the hit, which is important for this to establish the power dynamic between the two characters. Misfortune, as far as I can tell, the plot is she's trying to surrender. She's trying to say, okay, you got me. I will pay you some money. You're going to let me go. We don't have to have any trouble right now. But this guy clearly has other ideas. And again, because the motion of him towards her is slow, you can see they're spending much more time and many more frames. And again, notice Misfortune's face, by the way, here. It's moving independently from her hair. You can see the face is being rotated up and down to give the illusion of motion there, but the hair is a separate thing that doesn't actually move with the bobbing of her head. And again, it's very, very clever. And I really, really like it. And boom, there's the punch. And again, here you can see, especially if you notice his arm, you can see this thing is moving independently of the collar. It's just the image that's being rotated independently of how the collar is moving. Just in the same way that they do it with the head. And then boom, there's the punch. And I'd love to break down the frames of that, but I don't think I can pause YouTube fast enough to make that work. And again, Misfortune being lifted up, and boom. The effects on the smoke I'm interested in. Take a look how smooth they are. And I suspect maybe that's something that's done in After Effects, but also just animation like smoke animation. Again, like with the hair, when you need to do that stuff by hand, if you just use a single solid shape of color, it becomes much faster and easier to animate that kind of thing. Hilariously, if you notice, Misfortune's guns are like Glocks or something. They're modern handguns instead of the blunderbusses that she actually uses in her character model. And this, again, is a time-saving thing. Animating the blunderbusses is a lot more complicated than animating these very, very simple pistol shapes, which are basically just L's, functionally. And again, notice how much the movement the camera is doing, right? You can see everything's here is the whole scene is rotating just gently, which gives the illusion of a ship in motion, of a rocking ship motion, but it also keeps the scene moving, which gives the eye the impression that, okay, stuff is going on here. This is smooth. This is smoothly animated. And the same thing goes with the gunfire here. Let's see if I can catch it. There's not a lot of hand-drawn animation going on here. They've just basically got the hand holding here, the gun itself, the arm holding the gun here, attached to and they're moving them independently of each other very cleverly with a lot of lighting effects in order to give the illusion of rapid fire. And again, notice that they're all using like modern weaponry. modern rifle, modern handguns. And this again is just a time-saving measure. It's a lot easier to just use shapes like that, which are easy and familiar to work with. And you can see a little bit of an animation mistake here that doesn't really matter, is that the butt of the rifle suddenly appears under his arm instead of behind him, which is a weird way to hold a gun, but nonetheless, it doesn't really matter. Now here, if you're a fan of One Punch Man, you might recognize the technique being used in the next shot. You can see, rather than fill in the colors solidly across Miss Fortune's boots, it's all scribbled out. But notice that it's scribbled out in the direction that she's moving, right? So the scribbly effect of the coloration helps accentuate the motion of her feet. And that's something, if you watch One Punch Man, that they're very fond of using in the epic action moments, is that they will use these scribbles in order to enhance the motion. You can see here, this still frame is brilliant on that one, because you can barely like, if you just took this as a still frame out of the context of the scene, this would look like absolutely, you'd never recognize that as legs or feet, but because it is just an interstitial frame between leg movements, it becomes this brilliant little piece of... See if I can catch it again. And again, here you can see, instead of drawing the thing accurately, just scribble it. And scribble, every line moves in the direction of the movement, right? So the color is going in the direction that she's moving across the scene, whereas the lines of the boot follow the motion of the leg that they're trying to communicate. It's very, very clever. I love this kind of stuff. I love getting into this granular stuff. And again, once again, because this shot is really important to the action, they have spent a lot of the animation budget. And when I say budget, I don't mean money. I mean in terms of how many work hours can we pour into each part of the animation, and you budget that out across the shots in order to get it across. This is much more fluidly animated than, for instance, the bottle opening earlier. And you can see a hell of a lot of frames dedicated to communicating the role of her movement here. And look at the in-between frames, by the way, of her. See, she basically has no face here, because this is a quick motion, you don't need to show all the detail. It doesn't need to be there, so you can cheat and just do the barest indication. Here's one eye, here's the other eye, here's the nose. Now you know which way the face is facing. And then here, completely different. Like, that's not even the same face at all, but because we linger on this shot a little bit longer, we need a little more detail in order for her not to look like a weird puppet of some kind. And again, notice the background. All of this is 3D models, I think, that are posed on a plane that they're just moving her around them. Again, as a cost-saving measure, because the backgrounds don't really need to be anything more than silhouettes, you can just use cheap 3D models and get a brilliant effect out of it. And again, like, her head changes shape a lot. She's not on model. On model is a term that means conforming to one character model so that the character looks exactly the same in every shot. They're not bothering that much with that here, because these are action shots, and everything that happens tends to be obscured by effects and motions. And again, her hair seems to be animated kind of independently of the rest of her, with all these very smooth, fluid motions that the rest of the body doesn't really follow. And that's why I noted earlier in the commentary that the motion of the hair seems to be very important to the character, so they took care in the opening shots to establish that no, her hair will always move a lot more smoothly than the rest of her. And that's sort of a main feature, and that's really brilliant design, because having hair in motion, just like all the camera movements that they're doing all the time, helps give much more of an illusion of life coming out of her, even though most of her body in most of her shots is just sitting still. Something that they kind of forgot in these two shots, but they kind of needed it to be a still image so that we can spend the time looking at her expression. So if you had the hair making a lot of motion in this shot, there's a decent chance the viewer would miss the expression, so it's probably a smarter idea. And again, a lot of animation budget spent on this particular shot because it's important to communicate the action. That right now she's in full kill the pirates mode. And then I need to... Is that... Okay, it's her hair, right. And again, the hair is used brilliantly to communicate her motion. Notice how, poof, here comes a shot that tears out a little bit of her hair, adding to the chaos. And then she gets hit. And here's an animation smear. You might have seen these floating around the internet. That's very good use of an animation smear. And the red, the bright red of the blood flowing across the screen draws our attention to it. So we're never in any doubt that, oh, she got shot here. And that's a common animation technique, or common just film technique, really, to use a very bright color to indicate something important against the background, which is, on the whole, very drab. And also the trail of the blood, see how it follows the arm around, which helps accentuate the motion that she's about to spin around. And they're doing exactly the same thing with her hair, following around, coming around again. And because our eyes subconsciously follow the bright red color there, that helps communicate the motion of the turn, even though the animation is relatively limited. Again, animation smears, you can see here, you don't even need to connect her arm, really. Like, there's no need, because it's just part of a motion. And because we don't see every interstitial frame, you can get away with a whole heck of a lot. And again, look at the bad guys here. This guy it's just a copy-paste of that guy. That guy's copy-pasted here. That guy's copy-pasted more or less over here. A lot of copy-pasting going on because, again, because we're only going to be spending time looking at this for a quarter of a second before they all start getting mown down by Miss Fortune's bullets. Just a very, very super simplistic set of shapes to communicate the thing. And I love this kind of stuff. I wasn't actually intending to go through the video with this much granularity, but I just love it. And again, back to the present day, and you can see that the hair, motion of her hair flowing in the wind is being mirrored by the motion of these curtains, or whatever the heck they are, floating in the wind as well, which is a great way to bring more life to the scene again. Back to the 3D animated spider. And again, you can see the hand is not hand animated, as it were. It's just a moving shape. Picks up the glass, and a little clever thing. See? Not connected to anything. But because it's a motion, the eye fills in the blank. It forgives it. And then a brilliant use of light. Remember how we opened the shot looking at Miss Fortune in bright... she's completely white here, whereas the rest of the shot inside the cabin is blue and darker shades of blue, and the outside of the cabin is white, which tells us the direction of the light source, right? This helps orient us in the scene, because the very next thing that happens is, okay, we can see the direction of the light onto the spider, so we know that it's facing the window right now, which gives us a sense, okay, Miss Fortune comes in here, obscures some of the light, pulls away the glass, and then she's outlined against the light. So by using the light source cleverly, it keeps us informed of what's the direction of the shot. Like, where's the camera positioned according to the character? Where's Miss Fortune positioned according to the room? And it's small stuff, but it's really nice and it's really helpful. Now, narratively, Miss Fortune in this thing was offering these guys a chance of surrender with the coins, right? Just take the money, go, nothing bad is going to happen, I don't have to murder all of you. This guy was a moron and decided to attack her instead, and like literally all of his dudes got murdered because he just would not take the peaceful option. And here Miss Fortune is doing the same thing again. She's saying to the spider, okay, dude, I'm going to let you out of the glass, and if you're cool... we're cool. I just want to drink in peace and forget all the people I've murdered today. And you can see her expression too. Like, it's a pretty sad, like, just fucking go. I don't care. Kind of, I'm chilled out. Not bothered anymore. Just want to drink my thing. And the spider makes exactly the same mistake as the last man standing in this shot is going to. Again, she's offering him a chance to just, okay, I've murdered almost all of you. I'm bleeding. It fucking sucks. So I'm just going to point my guns down and throw my hair in front of my eyes and say, just fucking go. Just piss off. Doesn't matter anymore. And this guy, being an arrogant bastard, raises his gun. And as he raises his gun, this is a clever bit of directing. As he raises his gun, the shot cuts to the spider rushing towards Miss Fortune, wanting to bite her. And this is where the sound effect, by the way, which we can't hear right now because it would be hell jumping back and forth between the sound effect again of the gunshot happens just as the glass comes down on the spider, again accentuating the connection between the spider as a representative of the other people in her life, the other things in her life that just will not take the peaceful option when she offers it. So it gives us this sense of misfortune as locked in a cycle of violence that she kind of can't escape. And she's you can see the expression here that she's resigned to that fact. She's like, okay, Jesus Christ, even the spider doesn't fucking take a hint. And it cuts to black. So the bit about this that I find such brilliant characterization is it gives us, like I said, living lore means giving constant updates of content that reveals some part of the character, explores some part of their personality, their behavior, the way they interact with the world of League of Legends. This is a brilliant example of exactly that, because it gives us psychological insight into misfortune that, yeah, she will fucking murder a crew of pirates, but she's not enjoying it. It's not a happy thing. And when she's done with it, she needs a stiff drink and she needs to just decompress for a while because that shit is rough on her soul. And she hates that the pirates will never take the peaceful option, that people will never just put down their guns and stop fighting. Right. This is, again, like I mentioned, this is somewhat in contrast to her personality on the Rift, where it's more like, yeah, bang, 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 shoot everything. She's much more exuberant and confident and happy, but I kind of like that as this is a moment of her, not just like, I don't want to be a pirate hunter right now. I just want to drink. I don't want to fight. I don't want to kill more people. Just leave me the fuck alone. So I really like it as a piece of characterization, and I really like, as I've gushed a lot already, I like the use of animation techniques. I love the way they've directed it. I love the use of music, by the way, as well. This kind of almost Western sounding, I think. With a female singer, of course, accentuating the connection to misfortune. It's just, all in all, this is a very good short. I guess A+ if I'm still grading things. I hope many more of these animatics come out, and that Riot just let some of their artists just every once in a while, if you're tired of working on new skins, just go do one of these. And a couple of guys get together and produce one, and just explore some aspect of the character, show some aspect of how they behave. Also, some non-combat stuff would be nice, just characters hanging out, like fucking Tarek hanging out in the bar and everyone's hitting on him or something, or Ezreal strolling through a museum and being like, I found that, I found that, I found that, I found that, I found that. Like, just fun stuff of the characters just being themselves out in the world to expand on this notion of the living lore. Anyway, that has been me talking for, I think, about 34 minutes about a 2-minute animatic short. I hope some of this was interesting to you. I hope you enjoyed listening to me gush about how much I love animation and how much I love simple animation techniques. If you liked it, hit the like button. If you dislike it, hit the dislike button. Leave a comment down below with questions or comments. I try to read everything and I try to respond to everything, and I'll see you in the next video.